Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Morning Dew episode of the Dew Dissidents podcast here bright and early on Thursday, October 24th. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Guten Morgen, meine Damen und meine Herren.
See, Russell's got the summer garb today because it's so warm, in New York now. I mean, it was warm up here yesterday. Russell's got the Hawaiian shirt. Well, that's it from India, that shirt.
This is from India. This
It's
is
an
from
Indian
Goa.
Hawaiian.
It's an Indian Hawaiian, yes.
So you're doing two forms of cultural appropriation at once. Hey,
That's
speaking
it.
of cultural appropriation, why don't before we start, Nocturnal Humans says, before we get started, I want everyone watching to yell together, whoopee. How about ready all together? Ooh,
If you appropriate from 5 cultures, you authentically appropriate the 6th one free.
Yeah. That's a bit of an inside joke there, folks. For those cool kids who are patrons who sat in on our third-party debate stream last night, they had a third-party debate where every 7 or 8 minutes they would break for a musical act. And they had a, well, he wasn't a Mongolian himself. He was doing some cultural appropriation. They had a guy, I don't know what his nationality was, but he certainly was not Mongolian. And he comes out there and 8 minutes into the debate. It was the most bizarre thing. One of our best laugh meltdowns ever is on that stream at like the 38-minute mark. So
I
that's
literally
really worth
go off
$5
screen.
alone.
I fell out of the chair.
Russ fell out of the chair. Not only did Russ fell out of the chair almost fell over and knocked over his whole console. Like the chair was like quaking. I turned beet red. That was one of our best laugh meltdowns ever. That's at about 38 and a half minutes on last night's stream. So that's worth $5 just by itself. I guarantee you.
Right.
I guarantee.
Just become a patron to see that.
Just to see that. Yeah.
This is why, and by the way, folks, I just finished Chaos. I know a lot of you are big fans of that book. That's how I heard about that book from our audience. I have reached out to the author. So far, no joy, but we will see. I used a publicly available email. You never know if those people get that. I'm going to try to stalk them on Twitter. But yeah, man, the more research I've done into intelligence services, being involved in culture and politics, the more I am really convinced that if you're a really capable leader working outside the system, they'll whack you, they'll undermine you, they'll co-opt you. They won't allow it, because when you see something like that, you have to ask yourself, I know a lot of very smart people who don't buy into the whole duopoly thing, and they couldn't get anybody who didn't know that was a bad idea. I think the people who would not do that, like I said, man, they neutralize them. If you're running around anti-establishment and they don't neutralize you, it means you're helping the system by making alternative ideas look ridiculous.
Right. It means you're dumb enough to say, you know what? Why don't we take breaks in a debate every 8 minutes for throat singing?
Yeah.
And poetry and shit like
this is what they did. This is what they did. And you just ask yourself, like, how did that get through a committee? How did that get through? There was money here. There was money. They had a whole set. They had a whole set. They had a whole production. And with the moderators, you got one woman who I guess she recruited everyone from the local open mic that she knew. And the other guy was like the ghost of G. Gordon Liddy, just pissed off to be there. Those are your moderators. And then, they'd answer a question, and then there'd be a musical act. And the first time it happened, when the woman came out and recited Rumi in Arabic, I suppose, I said, okay, well, this is how they're starting it off. I don't think it was a good idea, but fine. And then they kept doing, and then the next guy was a throat singing guy. That was when he fell out of the chair. It just makes third parties look unserious and ridiculous. If somebody, one of our viewers was saying, well, I thought you guys are for art and politics. Yeah, in a context. If you want to have an evening with the candidates with music and poetry and you advertise it that way, yes, I am for that.
Right.
If you advertise a debate,
right, of course,
and you got people tuning in for a debate, I said this, and it's true. If I were not covering it, as soon as I saw I'm going to get a question and a musical act and a question and a musical act, I would have been out.
And they're
I
cutting
wouldn't
the
finish
candidates'
watching it.
mics while they're answering. Why? Why do you have to make time for throat singing? Like it just
Right.
It was bizarre.
And then they limited your challenges like a football game.
Yeah.
They you only had 2 rebuttals available. Why?
Yeah, like a football challenge.
And then they got one
you
of the
used
guys.
your rebuttals already.
Right.
What?
Right.
It's a debate.
To have the guy on who thinks that they were fucking trading from Africa through the Mississippi in ancient times. That's what you needed to make room for.
Yeah. No, it was very bizarre stuff. Very bizarre stuff. But we thank you all for being here with us this morning. 778 strong to start the day on the YouTube side. 470 in the Rumble room. Let's hit that like button. Let's tweet this stream out. Let's share this stream out to get a nice crowd in here on this Thursday morning. I will be appearing on our friend Pasta Jardula's Pasta to Go show along with Matt Weinglass at 3 p.m. Eastern today to talk a little bit about third-party politics. I assume we will be talking a bit about that debate as well as choices for third parties this year. So that's at 3 o'clock today. And then obviously on Saturday, we have the big event, VegasAirPeaceFund.org for tickets. They are filling up because we've been promoting the hell out of it this week. Jimmy's been sharing it. Scott Ritter's been sharing it. And so tickets, VegasAirPeaceFund.org. And, of course, there's still, 7 spots left on Russell's tour. DudeDissidents.com/tour.
7 spots. Saturday's gone. But there are 7 spots left for tomorrow's tour. And then that's it. I'm in theory, I'll enjoy this. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if you animals behave yourselves. But if I do, I'll do these every now and then.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
I'll do like my Lower East Side Jewish gangster tour, maybe.
Hey,
People
there you
would
go.
like that. Yeah.
Well, this is shaping up to be like an indie media fall festival in New York City between your tour on Friday and Saturday, the concert on Saturday, and then the brunch on Sunday. I think the brunch has got to be sold out by now because they only had like 20 tickets left as of yesterday. And I'm assuming, I didn't see the interview, but I'm assuming Scott Ritter plugged it because Scott Ritter was on, and Jose were both on Jimmy's show last night. So I'd be very surprised if there are still tickets left to that. But you could check at Scott's website, scottritter.com, for the brunch, the Sunday brunch. So, yeah, lots going on. Big festival in New York City this weekend.
But at Jose's thing, we found out it was a concert, and they booked us in the same slot, so we are going to be doing Tibetan throat singing.
Yeah, right.
So you really, really want to be there for that.
Yeah.
And at first, we were going to tap dance.
Right.
But
we were inspired last night.
But we were inspired to switch to throat singing because we don't know how to do either. So we figure, hey, well, if we were going to do the tap dancing, why not do the throat singing?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. All right, folks. So we are going to get started right now. Thank you all very much for being here. We are inside 2 weeks till Election Day. Just about every segment of ours on the YouTube side today is election related. We are doing 2 segments on the Rumble side, so we will be switching to Rumble towards the end of the show. We have a great Israeli comedy segment that we're going to do over there, and we're also going to be covering quite thoroughly, I think, the BRIC Summit over there. Now, why are we covering it over there? We're not going to be breaking any rules, but YouTube has just been vicious
Yes.
to channels that give that kind of stuff the coverage that it warrants. So we're going to do it over on Rumble. And I urge my peers to start doing this as well because there's been a lot of censorship lately, and so many of our peers who are great, I love them, but they all walk into a buzzsaw and then they complain when they get when they get nicked up. You got to use your Rumble channels. You got to use your free speech platforms. That's what they're there for. That's how we're going to build them. All right. So we will be switching to Rumble
use your lifeline
later. That's right. Use that lifeline. That's where we're going later in the show. No need to go anywhere now for you YouTubers. Enjoy East Berlin while you're there. All right. So let's get into it here. More trouble for Democrats. Michigan is really looking like this is the thing that could go south. Just like Hillary Clinton, there was those ominous signs in the entire Rust Belt, not just Michigan in 2016. Michigan really just has that vibe of the thing that's going to go sideways for Democrats, because there's story after story like this. And this is from the Detroit Metro Times, so this made very, very big news locally in the exact wrong place if you're the Kamala Harris campaign. Detroit Muslim leader ejected from Kamala Harris rally, deepening rift between Democrats and Arab Americans. The Kamala Harris campaign kicked out a prominent Muslim Democrat from the vice president's rally in Royal Oak on Monday, further driving a wedge between the Democratic Party and Arab and Muslim Americans. Ahmed Ghanim, a Democrat, says he accepted an invitation to the event and was seated in the Royal Oak Music Theater when a campaign organizer ordered him to leave. She took me to the door and she closed it, and I found 2 police officers waiting there. And she said, "You have to leave right now," Ghanim tells Metro Times. I asked why she was kicking me out. She wouldn't answer. I was very calmly asking why I was being kicked out. So he didn't do like a protest or anything. They picked him up. Right. Sir, you got to go. He continues, "I was just wearing a suit and a white shirt. I said, okay, and I left. The police officer said, you either leave now or I'll put you in the back of my car." Ghanim, who immigrated to the U.S. from Egypt in 2001 and is vehemently opposed to U.S. support for Israelis' military actions, oh, well, there's your answer, says he still has been given no reason why he was removed from the event. Ghanim became popular among progressives and other factions after co-founding Metro Detroit Political Action Network, a group that formed after the inauguration of Donald Trump. The network rallied against Trump's Muslim travel ban and branched out to fight other racial, environmental, and economic injustices. In August, Ghanim lost in the Democratic primary election to U.S. Representative Haley Stevens, a third-term moderate Democrat who has been a staunch supporter of Israel. Oh, well, that's another reason why you probably weren't welcome. You primaried one of their moderates. That's a no-no, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Pro-Israel groups, some of them funded by Republican megadonors, have lavished her, meaning the incumbent, Haley Stevens, with political donations. Over the past 4 years, United Democracy Project, a political action committee affiliated with American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, obviously, spent more than $4 million on ads in support of Stevens, according to campaign finance records. The ads make no mention of Israel. In an interview with Metro Times in May, Ghanim criticized Stevens as a genocide enabler. It's interesting that the AIPAC ads made no mention of Israel because they know that the Detroit area is not pro-Israel, right? And so they always have to play the team player card, right? Mm-hmm. That's the tactic that a lot of these moderate incumbents use against the challengers, which is that you're dividing the party and causing harm. Right. Of course, when it goes the other way, they never get accused of that.
Well, they don't mind dividing the party when they don't like the incumbent.
Right.
When the incumbent is too progressive.
No, George Latimer, right?
Hillary
Hillary Clinton will
endorse
endorse George Latimer.
Someone against them. Sure.
Yep.
They did that with Ed Markey?
Yeah, Markey too. That's right. Yep. You had a bunch of those assholes endorse Joe Kennedy over Ed Markey. Yeah, they'll do that. And Ed Markey is, that guy's more milquetoast than Liz Warren, and they'll raise
that was too much for them.
Yeah. He repeatedly called on Democrats to be more welcoming to Muslim and Arab Americans and said there's plenty of room in the party for diverse opinions on Israel's conduct. Ghanim says he and many other Muslims feel alienated by the Democratic Party and that Harris's campaign will be impacted by it. They keep saying they want the Muslims and the Arabs, but we aren't even welcome at an event, Ghanim says. They know me. I ran there. It's my district. I canvassed all over Royal Oak. Ghanim posted about his experience on social media and said a lot of Muslim and Arab Americans are angry with Democrats because of it. So here's his tweet. The Muslim ban is real, and it just happened to me at Harris's rally today in Royal Oak, Michigan. They kicked me out without any reason, even after I received confirmation to attend and passed a security clearance at the gate. After I was seated, they called me and asked me to leave without any explanation. So he attaches the screenshot of his email confirmation to the event and then posts this video, which he took after he found out that he was being kicked out.
I'm going to leave, but I want to know why you're kicking me out from the...
Well, I'm not kicking you out. The venue's kicked you out.
Who's the venue? The venue? How the venue know about me?
I have no idea. They've asked you to leave. So I was going to give you the
Unfortunately,
option
this
to
is
go
no
ahead.
longer a conversation, so can we please escort the vote, please? Thank you.
Okay. I'm glad they leave Muslims like that. That's amazing. That's an amazing.
This is no longer a conversation. We need you to leave.
Yep.
So here's the other interesting to this piece here. Meanwhile, Trump visited Hamtramck's Muslim leaders last week in an effort to win over Arab American voters. Hamtramck Mayor Amr Ghalib, a Muslim immigrant from Yemen who campaigned on banning LGBTQ pride flags from city property, endorsed Trump in September. Meanwhile, Trump visited Hamtramck's, they keep spelling his name in a different way. There's typos in the article. Hamtramck's Muslim leaders last week in an effort to win over Arab American voters. Hamtramck Mayor Amr Ghalib, a Muslim immigrant from Yemen. Oh, that's right. That's why it is, because I copied it twice. Sorry about that, folks. We prepped these at midnight last night after the supporter stream. The Michigan chapter of CARE, a leading Muslim advocacy group, spoke out about Ghanem's treatment at the event. As Donald Trump ramps up his outreach to the Muslim and Arab communities, the Harris campaign removes, under threat of arrest, a Muslim community leader who merely responded to an invitation. Basim El-Kara, executive director of CARE Action, added, "This disturbing action on the part of the Harris campaign sends a dangerous message of exclusion to the Muslim community." In a statement late Monday afternoon, the Harris campaign didn't say why Ghanem was removed, but said he's welcome at future events. Oh, at future events. The election's in what? 11 days? Hey, when we swing back around, never, because the election's in less than 2 weeks, you can come back to a future event. There aren't going to be any future events. It's the third week of October. But hey, if hypothetically we come back here within the next 10 days, which we're not going to, sure, track us down. That's amazing. He's welcome at future events. You say that with less than 2 weeks
in
to election day.
2028.
Yeah, in 2028. The campaign was swiftly informed by Engage Action of yesterday's incident and looked into it, the statement reads, referring to a Muslim American advocacy group. Our campaign regrets this action and its impact on Dr. Ghanem and the community, and he is welcome at future events. We value our relationship with the Muslim American community.
You are really showing that.
Really showing that.
You are really showing that. Touring that region with Liz Cheney.
Yeah.
Liz Cheney, daughter of the architect of what some would argue was a genocide in Iraq.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's the ultimate. I mean, that's the cherry on top, is you're having, these Muslim leaders removed from your events, and then you're barnstorming the Detroit suburbs with Liz Cheney, daughter of the architect of the post 9/11 foreign policy. Some say the architect of 9/11 itself. Not me. Some people are saying that. Some people.
9/11 was safe and effective.
Yeah, I'm not. But some people are saying that. I'm not saying that. But a lot of people think that, which means it's bad messaging.
Crazy people.
A lot of crazy people think that, which is why it's really not smart to go barnstorming these Rust Belt states, which have a lot of Arab voters, with Liz Cheney. And it's really not smart to be removing Muslims from your campaign events. They're really just pushing that. What you're seeing now is a doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down on the white suburban normies. That's the entire play.
That's it.
That's the entire play.
They're doing to Muslims what they did to the Bernie people.
Right.
Where everything they did was almost designed to alienate them. But alienating that faction, I mean, of course, they are psychologically disposed to do that. They hate people to the left of them far more than they hate people to the right of them. But really, it's about the more you alienate that group, the more you're cultivating or theoretically cultivating these suburban moderates with that kind of signaling. Normally, we see them doing this to left voters. Now they're doing it to Muslims.
Right. Exactly. Now,
fuck the Muslims.
Right.
We lost the Muslims. We're going all in on suburban white people.
Yep. And they're making this kind of shit part of their appeal to those suburban, conservative, leaning swing voters. That's why they're sending Kamala out there with Liz Cheney. They sent Doug Emhoff, Kamala's husband, to Michigan with Richie Torres to talk about what a staunch supporter of Israel Kamala Harris is. They took a Zionist from New York and sent him to the swing states with Kamala's husband to talk about Israel. Like, they are just going all in on the former subscribers of the Weekly Standard before it went out of business. Like, that is basically what they're betting the farm on. And it's not looking like a good bet at the moment. The momentum is definitely, building in Trump's favor. Not massively, but noticeably. But the Democrats know at this point that their only play is to this very narrow slice of voters, which happens to vote a lot. They're betting that, hey, these people turn out. Some of these other groups that we're losing don't tend to turn out as much, so we're hoping that for every
they don't
5 or 6 young people or Arab people or black people that we lose, one suburban normie will cancel them out because suburban normies vote a lot. And so that's what they're thinking. That's what they're thinking. But they are really, it really feels like karma is coming in Michigan. They're just pushing it further and further and further every single day. There's a new story coming out about how they're screwing over these people whose families have been genocided for the past year. And it looks like, to me, my gut is telling me there might just be a price to pay for it.
I think there will definitely be a price to pay for it in regions. They are. It's easy to miss it because you don't have Hillary herself, but they're running Hillary's 2016 campaign.
Right. Yeah.
For every blue collar worker we lose, we'll pick up 2 or 3 moderates in the suburbs. They're running which didn't happen.
Right.
1. And 2, they're really leaning into the Trump is unfit for office and the world is going to end if he gets elected argument, which, if anything, it didn't work in 2016. It's even weaker now because most people were better off when he was president. Not necessarily because of his policies, but we're at a different moment in history. We're post-pandemic. We've talked about this. You don't know that if Trump had gotten elected to a second term, we wouldn't have had the inflation. By the time that election took place, a lot of that inflation was already baked in.
Right.
What, he's going to get elected now and all of a sudden prices are going to go back to 2019? So I don't know how much improvement you're going to get. But in the end, in reality, prices were better. He was president. That's how people think. Since these people became president, got into office, I can't afford groceries.
Right. Exactly.
But, and once again, they're leaning into, he's unfit. It didn't work before. Why do you think that's going to work now? It's incredible that they did not learn from that experience. The only voters that appeals to, you already got them.
Exactly.
You already got them. That doesn't persuade anybody.
Yeah. Yep. That is 100% right. Conda Strike. Thanks for the Rumble rant. Sup, guys? I was going to sleep in today, but my boss is actually a selfish bitch. All right. Well, I hope your boss isn't watching Conda Strike. How do you know your boss isn't a fan? Yeah. But then I got the notification that DD is on, so I'll be up and feeling valued instead. Well, you are valued, Conda Strike. Thank you very much for joining us today. Excuse me. China Shill says, I joined late and was thinking surely they won't take a break after every question. Boy, was I wrong. Yeah, no, that was really bizarre.
I could not believe they programmed it that way.
Especially, look, they start out the night by saying, rightfully, that third parties are underrepresented in mainstream forums and that third parties can't be taken seriously as major contenders. And then you act in a way that validates people's dismissal of third parties as kooky and crazy. Why would you do that?
And hey, this is not a slam on the candidates. I don't think they had anything to do with that planning.
No.
They got invited to an event. They showed up, and this is how the organizers programmed it.
Yep, exactly.
Like Jill seemed like she was getting very frustrated, but
because they kept turning her mic off.
They kept turning her mic off, and we have to go to the throat singer.
Yeah, I understand time limits on answers for the sake of keeping the debate moving, but not because you have to cut to the throat singer.
Right.
You shouldn't have to cede time to a Mongolian throat singer in a candidate's debate.
Yeah, who the fuck tuned into that debate wanting that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
These are serious politics nerds who are going to tune into a third party debate. They want to debate. They want to hear these candidates talk about issues.
Right.
They have no interest in the local talent in your podunk town that you're holding this in.
What was it? It was in LA. It was actually a big, that's the thing. It was a big production.
See, I had the impression this is like an open mic somewhere in Kentucky or something.
Yeah, no, it was in Los Angeles. As I believe,
actually,
Pasta and Kim Iverson were in the room. I think they were there.
It kind of makes sense in a way because people aren't going to want to perform at that for fear of hurting their career in LA.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense.
Because it definitely seemed like local talent.
Yeah, the local talent who have nothing to lose, really, by showing up. Eleanor Morgan, thanks for becoming a YouTube member. Appreciate that. Raging D-Head, thanks for the $2. Democrats are really floundering. So hilarious. It is. We're going to show you some more floundering. I almost called it Kamala Flounders on CNN, but I ran out of characters, so I had to go with SQUIRMS. You got a 100-character limit on the titles for these live streams, but Flounder was my second choice. It was actually my first choice. I just couldn't use it because of the character limit. But yes, they are floundering. Jess Love, thanks for the $4.99. Jill Stein was strong in the debate last night. It's no wonder Kamala's people want her nowhere near her. She would expose her for the fraud she is. Well, we have a really interesting Jill Stein story later on in the show. JM, thanks for the $2. Appreciate that. All righty.
I thought she was quite good.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she had good answers. Todd, thanks for the $10. I early voted for myself yesterday, and it felt really good to vote for someone I agree with for once in my life. Well, congratulations, Todd. Appreciate that. Okay.
I promised I was writing in Jill Stein. I'm a man of my word.
Man of his word. Yep. I'm voting same day, though. I don't know how to do early ballots. I don't do well with mail. I don't send mail. I don't open mail. Don't send me any mail.
I just go the day of.
Mail.
I just go the
day of. That's it. All right, folks. We are going to continue on. So, Kamala Harris was on CNN last night for a town hall, which, look, I gotta say, I mean, I know the momentum has reversed in the race, as, you know, a lot of people suspected it would. I still say you hide her from the cameras and just hope that the normies show up for her. Just hope that the wine moms are too triggered by Trump to put you over the top, and that's it, because this is just not workable. So we got a few clips that we're going to play here. This is on the immigration question.
Trump, you criticized the wall more than 50 times. Under Donald Trump, you criticized the wall more than 50 times. You called it stupid, useless, and a medieval vanity project. Is a border wall stupid?
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't.
Talk about a half second of silence that lasts a lifetime. She was really expecting a laugh there, you could tell. She was tossing to the audience to back her up with laugh there. Why? Remember when he said Mexico would pay for it?
So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it?
She's reverting to the crazy laugh.
Yeah. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw was about 2%. And then when it came time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it?
Not one
in the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But you're agreeing to a bill that would earmark $650 million to continue building that wall.
I pledge that I am going to bring forward that bipartisan bill to further strengthen and secure our border. Yes, I am. And I'm going to work across the aisle to pass a comprehensive bill that deals with a broken immigration system. I think Jackson's question, part of it was to acknowledge that America has always had migration, but there needs to be a legal process for it. People have to earn it. And that's the point that I think is the most important point that can be made, which is we need a president who is grounded in common sense and practical outcomes. Like, let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it. Why is there any ideological perspective on this? Let's just fix the problem.
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I am not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
You know, so you
good
don't think it's
ideas like
stupid.
the wall? Good ideas like the wall? Okay, we will let this play because it's very short, but he asked her about the wall again.
Anymore.
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense because he actually didn't do much of anything.
I mean, he didn't build the wall he promised to build?
Talked about that wall, right? We just talked about it. He didn't actually do much of anything.
But you do want to build some wall.
I want to strengthen our border.
She can't even say she doesn't like the wall. She says, well, you know, he said he was going to build the wall, but he didn't build the wall. Okay, but that's the wall that you said was a stupid idea. Do you like the wall or do you not like the wall? And what is the I want to strengthen our border. She won't say no to the wall. This is how pathetic the Democratic Party is. In 2016, the wall was the metaphor for everything they hated about Trump. The wall was the metaphor for what a xenophobe he was, what a nationalist he was.
Democrats and Republicans had both been talking about a wall, a fence, going back to Clinton.
Yeah, but I'm saying in 2016, that was the metaphor. That was the thing. Trump, wall. The wall represented his nationalism, his racism, his fear-mongering, his this and that. 8 years later, they are...
And it's stupid. It's
They
stupid.
are
a
basically
medieval
taking his
solution.
position. Yeah. They are taking his position on the wall. They can't say it, which is why she has no answer there. But that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. Like his position on immigration has become the center. It has become the center. They have just completely ceded that ground, and it's so pathetic that is what their hair was on fire about 8 years ago, and they have nothing to say about it now. Jill Stein had a good answer on the wall last night. She said walls can actually kill people, and they can. They can, because they create these roundabout migration routes where people then cross over in the middle of the desert, and they die. That has happened many times before. Our friend Ellen Jimerson has talked about this. She made a documentary on immigration. They're very bad for wildlife. A wall in the middle of the desert, if a wall gets between a land animal and the only source of water, which is the Rio Grande River, for miles and miles and miles, those animals die. Hey, call me a softie and a hippie. I care about that. There are arguments against the wall. She can't make them. She can't make them, and she won't make them. Instead, she just tosses up this ridiculous word salad where now she's blaming Trump. Now she's ridiculing Trump for not building the wall that she said was a ridiculous idea. Like, completely incoherent.
Well, this is also a case study in what people who have refused to continue to accept the logic of the lesser of two evils have been arguing. Richard Nixon would be too far left for today's Democratic Party.
Right.
He created the EPA. He proposed UBI. He proposed a universal health care program more generous than Obama. It was shot down by Ted Kennedy because he thought later they could get something better under a Democratic president. That was a poor bet, as it turns out. This is in real time. Within a few years, you can see how this works. So when we say in a few years you're going to have somebody running with Donald Trump's positions,
right,
and Democrats are going to be saying you have to vote for them because the other candidate is Genghis Khan,
right?
Well, here you are. Here's Kamala in only a few short years running on Donald Trump's positions. This is what the lesser of two evils gets you. And if you think in 10 years you won't see Trump dancing with whoever the Ellen of the time is, you're crazy. You will. Yep. They'll rehabilitate him by comparison to whoever the villain of that moment is.
Yeah, right. When it's President Tom Cotton, they'll be embracing Donald Trump as the reasonable Republican who you can have a disagreement with. He never ruined Thanksgiving.
It is amazing to me. It is amazing to me how many Democrats have memory hold the fact that George Bush was every bit the Antichrist to the Democrats that Donald Trump is today.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was almost segment-worthy.
Threat to the Constitution,
oh, yeah,
threat to democracy. All that language was there with Bush. They weren't calling him a reasonable Republican we have reasonable disagreements with. Dick
Right.
Cheney was undermining freedom of the press, which he was. All that was valid. But now they're rehabilitated, so you can see it. You can see it in real time. Now George Bush is acceptable. And with much more basis than Donald Trump, people made the same accusations against George Bush. And now they'll tell you they never did. No, it wasn't like that. Yes, it was.
Of course it was.
Yes, it was.
Absurd.
What are you talking about?
This is now the libs are starting to get angry at George W. Bush again because he's not endorsing Kamala Harris. They're like, come on, Dick Cheney did it. You have to do it. I almost made a segment out of this today, but it would have required too much Twitter browsing in too little time. So maybe we'll do it over the weekend. But this lib, Jonathan Reiner, tweeted out, the silence of George W. Bush during the most consequential election in our lifetime is indefensible. And I quote tweeted, liberals are beginning to remember what a bad guy George W. Bush is. Like, yeah, he's a bad guy. He's a bad person. Yeah. That's why he killed almost 1 million Iraqis for no reason, because he's a bad man. Issues. Yeah, he's a bad man. So you shouldn't trust a bad man to do the right thing. Yeah, just unbelievable. Just really, really pathetic. We have more. So Kamala Harris was asked at the CNN town hall with Anderson Cooper what her words are for people who are considering a protest vote for a third party or sitting out the election over Biden and Harris's support for Israel in their bombardment of Gaza. This is peak liberalism. This sums up libs better than any piece of video this year, I think. Here's her answer.
You say to voters who are thinking about supporting a third party candidate or staying on the couch, not voting at all because of this issue?
Listen, I am not going to deny the strong feelings that people have. I don't know that anyone who has seen the images who would not have strong feelings about what has happened, much less those who have relatives who have died and been killed. And I know people and I've talked with people. So I appreciate that. But I also do know that for many people who care about this issue, they also care about bringing down the price of groceries. They also care about our democracy and not having a president of the United States who admires dictators.
Can you believe
and
that?
is a fascist. They also care about the fact.
So we helped Benjamin Netanyahu commit a genocide this past year. But, voters are going to weigh that against A, the price of groceries, and B, they don't want a president who's a fascist. Who's a bigger fascist than Joe Biden, who gave Netanyahu the green light to go ahead and exterminate people? But that pivot from, I hear you, it's terrible, but what about these other issues? That is the calculation that all of the liberals make. They can't dismiss outright the genocide in Gaza, although many of them do, because for many of them, they're Zionists first.
They do. I had one of these libs I reposted. Somebody did a political cartoon of Colin Powell arriving at the gates of heaven and St. Peter saying, some Iraqis would like to have a word with you. And you have this whole crowd of Iraqis. And the person took this as an opportunity to do their lib virtue signaling about how all the generals have come out against Trump. Said, yeah, no, some people who know Colin Powell and General Milley said maybe it's because they were in the military, and so they're reflexively conditioned to obey power. And I said, yeah, a lot of people who have helped to fund and equip a genocide under Biden are going to wind up feeling that way. A lot of them have already resigned.
Right.
Silence.
Nothing.
Silence. It only applies to Donald Trump.
It
only applies to
man.
George Bush. Under Biden, no, nothing like that has happened, where people have gone along with atrocities that they're going to regret later. No, nothing to see here.
Yep.
That we need practical, common sense solutions from a leader who is willing to work across the aisle on behalf of the American people and not themselves. They want a president who cares about a fundamental freedom to make decisions about your own body. Understanding that we're not trying to change anyone's belief, but let's not have the government telling women what to do with their body.
That is it's such a disgustingly amoral answer. I want to just play part of it again.
Not have strong feelings about what has happened, much less those who have relatives who have died and been killed. And I know people and have talked with people. So I appreciate that. But I also do know that for many people who care about this issue, they also care about bringing down the price of groceries.
To just
they
pivot
also
off
care
of it.
about our democracy.
To just pivot off of it. Like, yeah, I understand there are people whose family members have been murdered. I understand there's strong feelings about that. You know what there's also strong feelings about? Grocery prices, abortion. Like, it is such an amoral response. It is just such a disgusting answer.
Credit where credit is due. That is maybe the most honest answer I've ever heard come out of a Democrat on this subject.
That's what they think. That's their formulation.
That's it. Hey, yeah, genocide's bad, but how about what you just paid for bananas?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. How about those abortion rights? How about not
abortion?
having a president who makes mean tweets?
The bag breaks.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. That is just absolutely a hideous answer. All right, we have one more clip of Milan Anderson Cooper. I'll take a few of these Rumble rants before we do that. Bonzo Beans, the committee drew the line of fire breathing. Thank you, Bonzo Beans. Appreciate that. Chase the Mind, first Rumble rant ever. Congratulations. Listening to you guys restores my sanity from the world's daily grind. Appreciate all that you do. We appreciate you, Chase the Mind Sculptor. Welcome. Thanks for the Rumble rant. Please hit that follow button. Follow our channel over there on Rumble. We just crossed 20,000 subs on Rumble. That's a nice milestone for us. Eric Maines, thanks for the $10 over on YouTube. It's not just chaos. It's a three-body problem for the duopoly. Jill Stein and a third-party protest vote just became this in an election year, caused by way too many bodies in Gaza, of course. Absolutely. Joyce Martha says, Kamala's married? Really? Yes, she is. She is, indeed.
Oh, yeah. She's married to apparently an abuser of nannies.
Yeah, exactly.
Look that up. Look that up.
Yep.
They say she married her APAC handler.
Yeah. And then they got all indignant about people saying that. How dare you say that? Meanwhile, now he's on the campaign trail with Richie Torres, touring the swing states about how much he loves Israel. So that's not exactly a way to. That's not exactly the best comeback.
And watching her in that town hall, you know, I've been pretty convinced that they locked her in a room hooked up to a car battery and shocked her every time she laughed. But now the laugh is coming back. Under pressure, when she gets nervous, the creepy laugh comes back.
Yep. Well, it's back in this answer, too. So it's funny, you know. Not a fan of Charlie Kirk, but he tweeted out something. I'm paraphrasing. He says, this may be the worst answer. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Catman. This may be the worst answer to any question ever regarding Anderson Cooper asking Kamala Harris what mistakes she's made in her life and what regrets she may have about those mistakes.
I was hoping you clipped that.
Yeah, this is just amazing. This is just an extraordinarily horrible answer. Not as evil as the genocide answer. This is horrible in a funny way.
Well, this was like the scene in Train Spotting where Spud goes to get a job and he goes, well, I think my biggest fault is I'm a perfectionist, you know.
Yeah, right. It's even worse than that because she really doesn't name anything. This is amazing. It's amazing.
Something you can point to in your life, political life or in your life in the last 4 years that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
I mean, I've made many mistakes. And they range from, you know, if you've ever parented a child, you know you make lots of mistakes too.
Except I've never parented a child, so that's just a bizarre non sequitur, and it kind of plays as a dig to parents because I'm not one. And so, like, you could say that if you're a mother or a father, you could say that.
Well, she's like a stepmother, though, right? I mean, I took it that way.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, that doesn't count. I award that 0 points. I'm sorry. As a dad, I have an authority on this. I award that 0 points. You can't say, well, if you're a parent, you've made a lot of mistakes, right? if you're not really.
Did you have a bad experience watching the Brady Bunch or something?
You're right. No, I mean it just plays as this weird non sequitur because she doesn't make. I mean, like what mistakes have you made in that regard? What mistakes could you have made in that regard? She doesn't say. Said she goes right through that to this.
In my role as vice president, I mean, I've probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues, and I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question.
I think your biggest mistake so far was answering that question. I think your response to that was probably your biggest mistake. Now, look, I mean, that is a cringe answer. That is an absolute cringe answer. But, you know, again, just like her Gaza answer was honest in its amorality, there's probably a bit of honesty underlying this, because for a person as untalented and uninteresting and unfit to be where she is, she has to have probably not made many mistakes. I mean, when you think about it, this is a person with absolutely no talent whatsoever who is tied in a race for the presidency. Like, you kind of had to play your cards right.
Willie Brown says otherwise. He says she's quite talented.
Well, this is what I mean. You got to date the right guys. I mean, it's a crude thing. I don't advise Trump to say that, and I don't say that in a shaming way. But yeah, I mean, you pulled the right strings there with him. You know, that got you. What did he give her? 2 committee seats? I mean, that's what launched her career. Right. Exactly. So look, she made the right decisions. I'll put it that way. I don't want to be crass, but she made the right decisions in that respect. And look, she's maneuvered herself to the doorstep of the presidency despite having no intelligence and no talent. So how many mistakes could she have made? Very few. Very few. That may be why she has a hard time thinking. How did someone as mediocre as me get to the doorstep of the Oval Office? You can't have made many mistakes in your life if that's where you are, given who she is.
Well,
so maybe that's it.
Every step of the way, if you look at her entire career, she's always deferred to power. This is what my article to become shitpost is about. She's what they've always wanted, an avatar. This is what the elite class has always wanted. Someone who is going to be purely a figurehead, who is entirely beholden to them, who doesn't have any particular ideas of their own, that's never going to interfere with their plans. And after having spent so much time building up identity politics as a substitute for a meaningful political agenda, they love to hide behind people of diverse identities. She's perfect. She's perfect. You attack her, you're a racist. You attack her, you're a sexist. And she can play that much better than Hillary because she has a whole other identity group she can claim, or several of them, depending on who you ask or what day it is. This is the whole point of identity politics. The whole point of identity politics is to produce Kamala Harris.
Yeah, absolutely. This is why they had their eye on her from this November
exactly
9th, 2016. Yeah, exactly.
And before. Before. Why did they keep moving her up the chain?
Right.
That is she is the perfect product of a decades-long effort to remove politics from questions of class and economics.
Right. Exactly. Well said. Good point, Charles. Royal Oak is in Oakland County. The county realigned from Republican to Democrat, says Cool Blue. Thank you. This is perhaps 30 minutes east of Dearborn in Wayne County, Detroit. Thank you, Cool Blue. Appreciate that. I didn't watch the third-party debate. Was it a woke-a-thon or class-focused? Well, we watched the first 90 minutes. It was hard to really pay attention to the debate given the sideshow that were all the musical acts and everything. But, you know, they asked a lot of those questions. I mean, it was the candidates themselves were far more substantive than Trump and Kamala.
Actually,
Excuse me.
When they shut the fuck up with the fucking throat singing and the fucking crazy Afro revisionist history lessons, it was actually a good debate. Like, the candidates were interesting and substantive.
Right.
If they would have shut the fuck up, it would have been an hour-and-a-half debate that we would have watched all the way through.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, instead, it was, 90 minutes of debating with an hour of music and poetry and all that. It was really bizarre.
Even Disco Stew was interesting.
Yeah, there you go.
Even Bible-thumping Disco Stew.
Disco Stew. Hillary Hinton, 911, person of interest, Dav Zakim. Thank you, Hillary Hinton. Appreciate that. Jamie Turner, I've met people who believe in literal chemtrails, yet they refuse to even consider the theory that Jerry Sandusky is innocent. It's interesting, interesting pet cause of yours there, Jamie. Thank you. Are you a Penn State Nittany Lion? You know, those Penn State people are really, really devout. I'm going to guess you are. Kamala Harris, Jeb Bush moment. Please laugh. Yeah, there you go. Absolutely, yes. Quintessential. U.S. either stop fucking the third world, quintessential, or have to let them in. Can't tell Gaza, Haiti, Madagascar. Climate change prevents small-scale agriculture. If you're there, F you there and F you here too. I agree. Thank you, quintessential. Pete Sweet, Harris brain dead, unable to put a coherent sentence together. I keep looking for the lobotomy scars I'm sure are there. Yeah, no, it is absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal. And, you know, look, Trump, look, man, devil has the devil's luck. Trump couldn't do a thing right from mid-July to mid-September. Couldn't do a thing right. Every single decision, one worse than the next and the next and the next. When it matters, Trump figured out a way to keep his mouth shut, and Kamala, every chance she gets now, twice a week. Yeah, twice a week. Kamala now goes out and embarrasses herself in October. Yeah, he finishes strong. He does.
He does. He does. He works well under pressure.
Yeah.
He got it together. And this was always the danger they went into with Kamala, because unlike, say, Reagan, who in many ways was an earlier version of president as spokesmodel, literally, he had been a pitchman, and that was how he functioned largely as president, as a pitchman for wealthy interests. He was a philosopher king compared to Kamala Harris.
Oh yeah.
He actually had some opinions.
Right.
He actually had ideas about government, ideas I don't agree with, but he had ideas. The way he handled the Cold War he had input.
Right.
He had thoughts about that. This is just, there's nothing there. And it's always dangerous for them putting her out on stage.
Yeah,
right.
Of course.
Like how much can you program somebody to fake having a personality and substance? How much programming can you do before it falls apart on a stage? And that's what happened there when they asked her what her faults are. Right. There's no there. How much can you plan for every possible question someone might ask her in a setting like that?
Of course. Great crowd in here this morning. Almost 1,900 strong in the YouTube chat, 902 on Rumble. Hit that like button. Let's get an even bigger crowd in here. But thanks for the nice turnout this AM. Appreciate that. All right, folks. 1 October surprise that the Atlantic put out against Donald Trump. Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, boy. Here we go. Trump, I need the kind of generals that Hitler had. Yes, the Atlantic expose by Jeffrey Goldberg. A long article, which I had to read.
He's a poet warrior in the classic sense.
Yeah. A long one that I had to read. There is a bit of reading here. I made it as concise as possible to get to the money shot as quickly as we can here, but we do have to set this up a bit. So the article begins. In April 2020, Vanessa Guillen, a 20-year-old Army private, was bludgeoned to death by a fellow soldier at Fort Hood in Texas. The killer, aided by his girlfriend, burned Guillen's body. Guillen's remains were discovered 2 months later, buried in a riverbank near the base after a massive search. Guillen, the daughter of Mexican immigrants, grew up in Houston, and her murder sparked outrage across Texas and beyond. Fort Hood had become known as a particularly perilous assignment for female soldiers, and members of Congress took up the cause of reform. Shortly after her remains were discovered, President Trump himself invited the Guillen family to the White House. With Guillen's mother seated beside him, Trump spent 25 minutes with the family as TV cameras recorded the scene. In the meeting, Trump maintained a dignified posture and expressed sympathy to Guillen's mother. I saw what happened to your daughter Vanessa, who was a spectacular person and respected and loved by everybody, including the military, Trump said. Later in the conversation, he made a promise. If I can help you out with the funeral, I'll help. I'll help you with that, he said. I'll help you out financially. I'll help you. Natalie Kawam, the family's attorney, responded, I think the military will be taking care of it. Trump replied, good. They'll do a military. That's good. They'll do a military. If you need help, I'll help you out. Later, a reporter covering the meeting asked Trump, have you offered to do that for other families before? Trump responded, I have personally. I have to do it personally. I can't do it through government. A public memorial service was held in Houston 2 weeks after the White House meeting. It was followed by a private funeral and burial in a local cemetery attended by, among others, the mayor of Houston and the city's police chief. Highways were shut down and mourners lined the streets. In an Oval Office meeting on December 4th, 2020, officials gathered to discuss a separate national security issue aside from this Fort Hood. Sorry, I should have put a ... before that paragraph because I skipped over some details. Essentially, there was going to be an investigation of this death, which kind of irked Trump because he felt like the military was being sort of unfairly blamed for this at a more systemic level. At a certain point, according to two people present at the meeting, Trump asked, did they bill us for the funeral? What did it cost? According to attendees and to contemporaneous notes of the meeting taken by a participant, an aide answered, yes, we received a bill. The funeral cost $60,000. Trump became angry. It doesn't cost $60,000 to bury I'll let you read that, allegedly an effing Mexican. Wow. He turned to his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and issued an order. Don't pay it. Later that day, he was still agitated. Can you believe it, he said, according to a witness, fucking people trying to rip me off. Kawam, the family attorney, told me she sent the bill to the White House, but no money was ever received by the family from Trump. Some of the costs, Kawam said, were covered by the Army, which offered, she said, to allow Guillen to be buried at Arlington National Cemetery, and some were covered by donations. Ultimately, Guillen was buried in Houston. Shortly after I, Jeffrey Goldberg, the author of the article, emailed a series of questions to a Trump spokesperson, Alex Pfeffer, I received an email from Kawam who asked me to publish a statement from Myra Guillen, Vanessa's sister. Pfeffer then emailed me the same statement. I am beyond grateful for all the support President Donald Trump showed our family during a trying time, the statement reads. I witnessed firsthand how President Trump honors our nation's heroes' service. We are grateful for everything he has done and continues to support our troops. Pfeffer told me that he did not write that statement and emailed me a series of denials. Regarding Trump's fucking Mexican comment, Pfeffer wrote, President Donald Trump never said that. This is an outrageous lie from The Atlantic 2 weeks before the election. He provided statements from Patel and spokesperson for Meadows, who denied having heard Trump made the statement. Via Pfeffer, Meadows' spokesman also denied that Trump had ordered Meadows not to pay for the funeral. The personal qualities displayed by Trump in his alleged, I would say, reaction to the cost of Guillen's funeral, since even that is contested, that's my editorializing there, not his. Contempt, rage. How do you say that word? I never know.
Parsimony.
Parsimony. I never knew if it was parsimony or parsimony. Racism hardly surprised his inner circle. Trump has frequently voiced his disdain for those who serve in the military and for their devotion to duty, honor, and sacrifice. Okay, so what they're doing here is they're basically taking a story about what an asshole Donald Trump is in private, referring to how much money does it cost to bury a Mexican? Why are they ripping me off? And they're saying this is what an asshole he is in private, which there have been so many articles and even books written about, inside the Oval Office, Trump's antics, screaming and cursing. And now they're trying to sort of morph that into a narrative about his disdain for the military and how he wants it to function a lot like Hitler's military, of course, which they're getting to here. So, I mean, this has all the hallmarks of an October surprise smear piece. It really does. And look, I'm not denying Trump is an asshole in private. I'm sure he is. We don't know whether he said those things. We can't say that for sure.
I'm gonna say this. We always want to be fair on this show. I know somebody who worked for Trump's father. I've told this story before briefly. His father had Alzheimer's. later on in his life, but he was such a tough son of a bitch that he was still pretty active, even with Alzheimer's, and he had broken his hip. So they let him keep going to the office and thinking he was doing work. But he would walk out at 2 o'clock in the morning and wait for his limo to go to the office.
Right.
So my friend was hired to make sure he didn't do that. So he interacted with Donald Trump quite a lot. And I hung out with him recently, and I asked him, so what was Trump like? He said he was very nice.
No, interpersonally, yeah, I've heard the same thing. Keith Olbermann said he was a very nice guy. That's why he could pull off the McDonald's schmoozing and stuff. Now, under pressure, does he seem like a guy who would lash out in anger quite a bit at those around him and bark orders at his underlings and express frustration and rage at them? Yeah, I can buy that. We don't know or not know what was said or what was not said, but the bottom line is what he said publicly to the family, they appreciate it very much, and they actually repudiate this piece, which we're going to get to in a moment here. Trump has frequently voiced his disdain for those who serve in the military and for their devotion to duty, honor, and sacrifice. Former generals who have worked for Trump say that the sole military virtue he prizes is obedience. As his presidency drew to a close, and in the years since, he has become more and more interested in the advantages of dictatorship and the absolute control over the military that he believes it would deliver. Quote, I need the kind of generals that Hitler had, Trump said in a private conversation in the White House, according to two people who heard him say this. People were totally loyal to him, that follow orders. This is absolutely false, Pfeffer wrote in an email. President Trump never said this. So they print this stuff along with the denials that it was ever said. Now, look, framing it as I need the kind of generals Hitler had is obviously not a good political look if it was said at all. We just have to keep saying that. This was allegedly said. But substantively, yeah, I mean, this is a point you've made over and over again. Trump's great crime against the deep state was his assumption that the president controlled his armed forces and not the deep state. Like that is what they hate most about him.
That's it. That's all of it. George, as is often observed, as a president, George Bush's crimes are out of proportion to anything Trump ever did, but they were crimes on behalf of the deep state.
Right.
There's no price to pay for that. Trump, look what happened when he started bombing Syria. They gave him all the signals that they were going to rehabilitate him, that the media was going to start to treat him with the kid gloves. They were going to, he learned how to be president. They were going to do all that shit. They kept telling him to go fuck themselves. He didn't get on script. He didn't get on message after that. So they went back to attacking him. That's all it's about. That, which is not to say there's nothing valid to criticize Trump about, but that's they don't care about those things.
Of course. This goes on. In their book, The Divider, Trump in the White House, Peter Baker and Susan Glasser reported that Trump asked John Kelly, his chief of staff at the time, why can't you be like the German generals? Trump at various points had grown frustrated with military officials he deemed disloyal and disobedient. Throughout the course of his presidency, Trump referred to flag officers as my generals. According to Baker and Glasser, Kelly explained to Trump that German generals tried to kill Hitler 3 times and almost pulled it off. This correction did not move Trump to reconsider his view. No, they were totally loyal to him, the president responded. So, we don't have to read the rest of this. You get the picture. Kamala Harris really jumped in front of a camera. You could tell the Democrats getting desperate, really trying to make an urgent matter of this. She gives an address at the White House, calls a press conference, and issues the following statement.
Yesterday, we learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired 4-star general,
as if this is
confirmed
earth-shaking
that while
news.
Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him.
This is a gossipy article in a shitlib rag 2 weeks before the vote, and they're acting as if this is a major national security development. We need to call an official press conference. We need a press conference. We need an American flag behind her. We need to issue a statement on this as if this is earth-shaking news. I mean, it's really, really pathetic. That goes on for 3 minutes. I'm not going to subject you to that. We've subjected to enough Kamala word salads already today.
Yeah, and we have Trump's response, which I thought was pretty strong. You tell him. Crowd seemed to like it.
There you go. But of course, the other part of this story. Hold on, I got to get to this because this is the real cherry on top of this. And this also indicates what sleaze the media is, and this is what real Trump derangement syndrome is. It's this kind of shit when you distort and make up and insinuate and make stories out of non-stories. Look at this headline here. This is from the Guardian. Sister of slain Army private and others speak out after alleged 2020 Trump remark. They speak out after the Trump remark. So, viewers, if you were to read the Atlantic op-ed or watch a TV segment about the Atlantic op-ed or read a secondhand article about the Atlantic op-ed, since that went everywhere, and you read this headline, Sister of slain Army private and others speak out after Trump remark, what would you think they said? You probably would assume, based on this headline, that they reamed Donald Trump. Because the article puts it very vaguely, and all of the context around this story is negative press for Trump. We're not going to read this, but I just wanted to put this on the screen to show you they bury the lead in exposition. So paragraphs and paragraphs of exposition until this part highlighted here. Later on Tuesday, after the Atlantic report was published, Vanessa's sister, Myra Guillen, criticized the story on social media. So you have a headline that doesn't mention her point of view about this whole affair. Doesn't say deceased soldier's sister blasts the Atlantic over Trump's smear. No, they say she spoke out. And then they bury what she actually said halfway into the article.
Well, because they know most people don't read past the headline, and even less people read past the first two paragraphs.
That's exactly why. Now, they include it so they don't get accused of lying, but the intention is, of course, to mislead readers and internet browsers, right? So I don't appreciate how you are exploiting my sister's death for politics. Hurtful and disrespectful to the important changes she made for service members, she wrote, referring to a bipartisan federal law named after Vanessa, which requires, among other things, sexual harassment complaints involving service members be sent to an independent investigator, which was signed into law in 2021 by Biden. In her statement, Myra added, President Donald Trump did nothing but show respect to my family and Vanessa. In fact, I voted for President Trump today. So that's her tweet. She quote tweets the Atlantic article and tweets what we just read. I don't appreciate how you are exploiting my sister's death. And in fact, I voted for Donald Trump today. And she had nothing but good words to say about his interaction with her family. Natalie Kalam, their lawyer, also disparaged the Atlantic piece and the author online. So their family's lawyer tweets out, after having dealt with hundreds of reporters in my legal career, this is unfortunately the first time I have to go on record and call out Jeffrey Goldberg at The Atlantic. Not only did he misrepresent our conversation, but he outright lied in his sensational story. More importantly, he used and exploited my clients and Vanessa Guillen's murder for cheap political gain. I would also like to point out that the timing of this quote-unquote story is quite suspicious, as this supposed conversation that Trump had would have occurred over 4 years ago. Why a story about it now? Good question. We all know the answer, of course. As everyone knows, not only did Trump support our military, he also invited my clients to the Oval Office and supported the I Am Vanessa Guillen bill, too. I'm grateful we were successful in getting bipartisan support of the I Am Vanessa Guillen Act, and because of everyone's hard work and efforts, our service members now have more protections and rights while serving our country. So you talk about a last-minute Hail Mary fucking smear piece. I mean, that is pretty egregious. It's pretty egregious. And look, there's no shortage of gossip around the Trump White House. His administration was very leaky because everybody knew they could sell a book. Everybody who worked with Donald Trump knew if they spill the tea, they could sell a book and get rich. So it was a very, very leaky White House. And yeah, I'm sure the guy is prone to outbursts and tantrums. That's not a political story. The fact that he may be an asshole in private amongst his inner circles is something that I think most people probably assume is true about Donald Trump. Bottom line here is there's no evidence he actually said what they said he said. And even if he did say what they said he said, he didn't say that publicly for the family to hear. If he's pissed off that he's getting overcharged for the funeral, it's his right to blow off some fucking smoke about that. Like he doesn't like that. That's not a statement to the family. And we don't even know if it was said. So it's just a ridiculous piece. And the response was obviously twisted around as well. The family comes out and says, we condemn this piece. And most of the articles have those deliberately vague and deceptive headlines. They speak out after the article comes out. That's media manipulation 101, folks.
LBJ, who they adore in hindsight, used to literally make people take meetings with him while he took a shit with the door
while he was wiping his ass, with the door open.
Bill Clinton was known to have these wild tantrums.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, that's not a basis. And it looks like the article is bullshit, like so much else that they say about Trump. And I don't know if you have this clip or if you're planning on playing it, but I think it was on CNN. The guy was pointing out, you know, all of these people who worked for Trump have been given the signal that they're only going to be invited back into polite company if they denounce Trump. So they're highly incentivized for career reasons, for financial reasons, to jump out and say, oh, yes, I heard him that time say he wanted to kill puppies.
Of course.
So
you get rich that way.
Right. There's not only is there look at the Lincoln Project. Not only is there no evidence for this, the people making the claims are highly incentivized to make these claims. And once again, this is right out of the Hillary and failed Hillary campaign book to go and just start talking about Trump as being unfit, as being an existential danger. I think them calling a press conference just makes them look desperate because it is so clear that this is not worthy of that.
It's not a news event. It's
not a news
story.
Event. It's a campaign.
It's an article
tactic.
Yeah.
Like it's so obvious that they're trying to make a campaign tactic look like an official event, like a matter of national importance.
Right.
So yeah, it's just reading as desperation. If this is their October surprise, they should be popping the champagne corks at the Trump campaign, because that's pretty weak tea.
Absolutely.
They've been calling him Orange Hitler for 9 years now. Like what? You saying this all of a sudden? There are people sitting around who never heard you make this kind of a claim about Donald Trump, who say, "Holy shit!" and I was going to vote for that guy. Right. Who are you winning that you didn't already have? The libs will love it,
right?
But you already got them.
Exactly. So you see, folks, because people every once in a while will call us Trump deranged because we criticize Trump for valid reasons. This is Trump derangement syndrome. So criticizing Trump,
that's the other flavor of Trump deranged.
Exactly.
If you're so Trump deranged that the slightest criticism doesn't allow you to jack off that night.
Yeah, that's also Trump derangement. So criticizing Trump for praising Netanyahu's war effort, that's not Trump derangement syndrome. That's legitimate criticism. Freaking out over Donald Trump over a likely bullshit story about how he wanted Hitler's generals. That is Trump derangement syndrome.
Of course.
So, in response to the Atlantic's article, which alleged that Trump got very angry about the funeral cost of the Mexican soldier who was tragically killed in 2020, and, of course, his wishes for Hitler's generals, CNN had a little panel discussion here. So here is CNN panelist Ryan James Gerdusky taking on the rest of them, he performs pretty well here. Look at this conversation.
There are a number of voters. I have a feeling that there are a number of voters who are hearing so many things about Trump. They're hearing the claims, they're hearing the statements, they're hearing about members of the cabinet saying no can do, no will do again. And then you hear Trump's campaign saying this is false. President Trump never said any of this. I mean, Trump, though, tonight praised authoritarian leaders, China's Xi, Russia's Putin. Listen to this.
Can you imagine what President Xi, you know, I got to know him very well. He's a fierce individual. He runs 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. Am I allowed to say he's smart? He's smart. He's a smart man. He's a fierce man. I get along with him very well. Putin, these are people that are tough people.
He's a fierce man. Not as well endowed as Arnold Palmer, but a fierce man nonetheless. No, look. Okay, so first of all, just look at the absurdity of that formulation. The article
It's not the
says,
size of the rice roll, it's how you use it.
You're right. The article says he wants Hitler's generals. He denies that he said that. But here he is praising authoritarian leaders. Like, look at the leap. Look at the leap from one point to the next. It's fucking absurd. It's fucking absurd.
And he's really not praising him. He's giving an honest assessment of his skills.
Well, this is what they really hate.
And if you say anything that's not antagonistic about a competitor or an adversary, you're a traitor. Nixon went to China, baby.
Of course.
You know, you don't reconcile with your friends.
Well, Trump knew that. Trump knew he was going to get shit for it. That's why he says, am I allowed to say he's smart?
Right.
Like, this is the kind of diplomacy that Trump tries to engage with people like Putin and Xi and Kim Jong-un. Like, can we respect them as autonomous actors?
Right.
With agency and legitimate standing in the world. That's how he sees them. Now, he's not necessarily dovish towards them. Don't forget, Trump armed Ukraine before Biden armed Ukraine, right? But he views them as agents to be negotiated with, whereas we see everyone outside of NATO and the G7 as bugs to be squashed, basically. And he doesn't view them that way, and that is his great crime against the West that the deep state cannot forgive him for. So when he says Xi is smart, Putin is smart, what he's saying is they are formidable adversaries, and we have to negotiate with them because we don't want the alternative, which is nuclear war, and that freaks them out. And listen how she goes on here, setting this up.
I mean, many people have an issue with appraising of any kind of either of these two leaders. Does the fact that he appears to have a strong affinity for those who are authoritarians in the leadership, is that deniable at this point?
Well, in the clip you showed, he didn't.
Oh my God! My God, where's my Rappaport sound drop for that? I mean, that is just an incredible question. Incredible question, given that your president, Joe Biden, has been seen on camera multiple times literally embracing Benjamin Netanyahu as he commits the greatest crime against humanity of our lifetimes. Oh, well, you know, people don't like that he has this affinity for strongmen dictators. Who the fuck is Netanyahu, you fucking moron? Fucking airhead.
Did anybody
who just takes these notes and asks these questions? She doesn't think about a thing that she says. I guarantee you. She has not a brain in her head that she uses. She does not use her brain. She just spits out the most absurd fucking nonsense. How the fuck can you impugn Donald Trump for speaking favorably of strongmen authoritarians as your president, who you and your network do propaganda for, has been seen multiple times, literally with his arms wrapped around the mass murderer of our time, Benjamin Netanyahu? This is the brain rot that sets in when you consume this media, because that is just baked into your understanding of the world. Like, it would never occur to you to think, well, what do you mean? Why is he speaking highly of authoritarians? We support Benjamin Netanyahu. Like, viewers of this do not think that way. That never crosses their mind.
Well, and it's also, it really shows you how much the interests of the military-industrial complex, as expressed through their corporate owners and parents and the common investors between these networks and the arms companies. BlackRock, Vanguard, 90% of companies in the S&P have common owners. So if you've got BlackRock has an investment, and what BlackRock probably has an investment. So there's one big overarching oligarchy really controlling all the messaging, all the foreign policy efforts, all the donations to political candidates. There really is a cabal running the West. There really is. And BRICS, as we'll cover later, is trying to arise to counter that cabal. But when Reagan went to have détente with Gorbachev, nobody called him a traitor.
Right.
Nobody said, "Oh, he's speaking well of the enemy." They said, "Oh, wow, this is so statesmanlike. This is so great. He's getting us past the Cold War." But that's not in the interests of the military-industrial complex. And now they have completely taken over these so-called news agencies, so that now this is the narrative. Trying to make peace is traitorous. It's not diplomacy. It's not statesmanship. It's treason.
Exactly. All right. So now we're going to get his response.
It's not okay. Well, it's not, but it's not praise either, which is what you said it was, which it wasn't. But according to the Jeffrey Goldberg article, which we've talked about this entire night, you can't trust that article because the quote 60,000 for an effing Mexican funeral. The only two on-record sources both said that he didn't say that. The only source is an anonymous source, and the family of the deceased soldier said that he was lovely to them, and in fact, they voted for Donald Trump today. That's how much they disagreed, and they said it was a disrespectful article that politicized the death of their loved one. And Jeffrey Goldberg did not care about printing something that they had no sources on the record for. And I honest to God, like most Americans, do not care General Kelly's farewell tour where he tries to make amends for working for Donald Trump, since Democrats said we're going to run all these Republicans who work for Trump out of town unless they somehow make peace. So 2 weeks before Election Day, he runs to liberal journalist Susan Glasser about a conversation that allegedly happened 4 years ago. It doesn't pass a smell test. And that is why people are turned off to all of these stories. They remember Donald Trump's presidency for low inflation, jobs, peace through strength, controlled borders. That's why they care. No one believes Jeffrey Goldberg and the article from a publication that's owned by one of Harris's donors.
I mean, no lies detected there.
Nailed it.
In terms of the picking apart of the article. The article, as we covered in the previous segment, contradicts itself multiple times. There's multiple caveats in the article that on-the-record sources deny that this was ever said. He doesn't care. Jeffrey Goldberg knows when he prints that in The Atlantic, networks like CNN will cherry-pick the parts out of it that are most damning about Donald Trump. They'll bury everything else, and they will get a nice 48-hour, 2 days of hate, panic over it, and drive ratings.
A lot of clicks.
That's really what it's about. It's just Trump derangement syndrome. It's
Why is he talking about Arnold Palmer's penis?
That's it. That's it. It's that kind of story that they're trying to inflate into something else because the word Hitler is in the article. That's what makes it worthy of a press conference, right?
Right.
Yeah. All righty. Let's move on here, folks. We've got plenty more to do today. We are going to be switching to Rumble for the final two segments, but we got more to do here on the YouTube side as well. Kamala Harris, Jeb Bush moment. Please laugh. Thanks, Eric Rousseau. Back from the road. Just finished the show from yesterday. Holy shit. Was it funded by Dems to kill credibility third parties might have gained this cycle?
Right.
That's what Tusker thought. Between the preacher, the throat singer, and the botched anthem. Total joke. Total joke. Indeed. No wall, but high-tech armed robot dogs. Outlaw Terminator. Thank you for that, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that. B-Man, thanks for the $5. That border bill that Trump helped to get dropped had $150 billion for Ukraine. That is true. Tom Fashin criticized Engage action. Thank you, Coco Flow. P. Noid News, thanks for the $5. I just watched your birth rate video. Has anybody tried getting rid of child support and the punishments men face having kids? All right, well, that's not exactly It's not exactly a family values message, but I take your point. Coco Flow, thanks for the $4.99. Check out the Thinking Muslim Show latest episode. Oh, yeah, we did a segment on that a couple weeks ago. Joseph Stout, thank you for the $10 super sticker. Appreciate that. Sparky, how are you, Sparky? Thanks for waking up with us. German President Steinmeier awarded President Biden the Order of Merit after the U.S. blowing up Nord Stream finally came to light in the MSM. Was this the most epic cuck move in history? I did not see that, actually, Sparky. I will have to look into that.
Hey,
Kira
man.
and Gina. What's that? Oh, that's right. Thanks, everybody. 2,000 in the YouTube chat. 1,100 over on Rumble. Please like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff. Kira Gina, thanks for the $2. The Dems would welcome Hitler's endorsement. Yes. Sparky, thanks for the $2. Build a better world with bricks. Sparky, you're going to like our brick segment over on the Rumble side. D. Marie, thanks for the $9.99. Great show, y'all. I live in the only Democratic stronghold in Louisiana and am practicing restraint and avoidance until the election for mental health reasons. Appreciate your takes. Well, thank you very much for that.
Well, that's New Orleans, right?
It must be.
I don't think there is any other.
I don't think there's any other either. Bastello Maserati, thanks for the $26. Viva Pyongyang Restaurant, Burbank, California. Thank you, Bastello Maserati. Landrew's here. Let's get a cowbell and a sound drop for Landrew. Landrew, thank you for the $100. Maybe they misheard Trump. I want Hitler's genitals. Yeah, Free Palestine writing in Jill Stein. Thank you.
Landrew. Landrew is dead.
Appreciate that, Landrew. Thank you very much. What state are you in? You're writing in Jill Stein? You can't vote first. She's not on your ballot. I wonder what state Landrew's in. All righty. We're going to move right along here. We got a Jill Stein segment to do right now. All right, folks, this is a really interesting story. There's quite a bit of video here, but I think it's worth playing. So Jill Stein went on the Tavis Smiley radio show. Now, just to set this up, Tavis Smiley started this election cycle supporting Cornel West when he thought Cornel West was going to run with the Greens. So Tavis Smiley, you know, in recent years anyway, I don't know much about his background overall. Not the, like, Democrat hack that you would expect from mainstream media. Like, he's been friendly towards the Greens. And the DNC caught wind that he was interviewing Jill Stein, and so they sent him a list of questions that they suggested he asked her. So let's take a look at this.
I'm doing this not because I mean to put you on the defensive at the outset of the conversation. I'm doing it because I've already shared with our audience 2 hours ago when I first came on the air today that in the middle of the night last night, I received an email from the DNC. It came from a private email. It did not come from a DNC email, as I typically receive. I would not name the person who sent the email, but it came to me from a DNC official. And let me just read what this email says. I am reaching out from the DNC because it is my understanding that Tavis Smiley will be interviewing Jill Stein this week. I wanted to put a few things of note on your radar screen for it being, of course, the conversation. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. And so there are about 5 or 6 things here that the DNC evidently wants me to ask Jill Stein. So in full transparency, these are not my questions to start this conversation. These are from the DNC, and I want to give Dr. Jill Stein a chance to respond to them. And maybe we'll get into some conversation about what it means that the DNC is tracking this thing the way they are to send me questions to ask Dr. Jill Stein. I'll leave that, as my grandmother, Big Mama said, we're going to leave that lay where the good Lord done flung it. I'm going to leave it right where it is. And I'll let you process that for yourself. But these are the things that the Democratic Party wants me to ask of Dr. Jill Stein. The first thing on the list, no surprise, Dr. Stein, I quote from this email. This week, the New York Times reported that even Jill Stein's family doesn't want her to run because of the risk her candidacy poses in helping to send Donald Trump back to the White House. Your response.
I can be sure.
Okay, so I cut to the end of her response. As we know, Jill can monologue for a while. In the interest of time, we don't have to hear the whole answer. That's not really the point of this. So, okay, so he gets an email from a DNC official with a list of questions that they want him to ask Jill Stein. He goes ahead and he asks every question on the list while acting as if he's defying them, but not defying them.
Right.
It's very bizarre. I really think
weird.
he felt his
weird.
job was threatened if he didn't read these questions. And here, I'll let this play a little more, and then we'll pause one more time.
That the DNC had a role in that New York Times article and in every other article. Because if they are basically telling you, instructing you as a journalist on what you should be saying in this interview, that is absolutely outrage. This is an all-out assault on freedom of the press and freedom of speech. This is the opposite of censorship. This is actually election interference and distortion through the press.
Let me correct just one thing. DNC trying to tell Tavis.
Exactly. Let's affirm that.
To tell Tavis
and give a big shout out here to Tavis Smiley.
But you are,
Blanche. I ain't the one. You are. You send it to me. I'm going to out you for sending it to me. And you better be glad I didn't call your name. And the folk who are copied inside the DNC on the email that was sent to me. That's the dumb part. You send it to me, and then you copy people inside the DNC. Not very smart. But this is what you get when you send stuff to me like this and think I'm going to play your game.
You are playing their game.
But you are playing it.
You're asking them every question they wanted. You're asking her every question they wanted you to ask her, and you're making this show of protest.
And you're not naming names.
And you're not naming names. And you're not naming, like, you are playing their game. He, I think, really felt that they were going to get him fired if he didn't ask her what they said. Because Tavis, so then you would say, because Russell, you talked to me about this last night when we were prepping this segment. You said, well, I mean, why, if he was worried about his job, why wouldn't he just ask the questions and not make a public protest of it? And the answer is because he has a reputation of being sympathetic to the Greens. So it would have looked too strange if he had brought Jill on and asked her all these hatchet man questions. So he has to make this public show of, like, you tried to get me to play along, but you failed. How did you fail? You're reading every question that they want you to ask her, and you're not naming names who sent you the email. So, like, you're playing along and acting like you're not playing along by putting on this little protest act. It's very, very bizarre. I can't say I blame him because, as he brings up, he references the two black radio hosts who were fired when they asked Joe Biden tough questions. I think he literally feared for his job. I think he feared he will be fired if he doesn't ask. So what do? I can't not ask because then I'll get fired. I can't ask as if I really care about these questions because people know me as being sympathetic to Jill Stein and Green Party. I was back in Cornell West when he ran as a Green. So what did he do? He has to do this. It's really interesting. Do you have anything to add? We got a lot more video to play.
This is why, in the end, who knows what they pay for something like this. I imagine it's better than this, but you're better off as a fucking podcaster, man.
Yeah, just go independent.
Nobody tells you what to do. And he's got enough of a name that walking in the door, he'd have an audience.
Oh, yeah, he's fairly famous.
So why do this? This is talk radio. It can't be that much money.
No. And he's fairly famous. He'd do very well in our space.
Sure.
Yeah, he's good at what he does. He's talented. He's likable.
So,
he's smart. Yeah. So why do this?
Why be in this position?
Yeah. All right. Here we go.
And I have nothing against the DNC. I am a registered Democrat, have been on my entire life. That's not the point. There were two other, you recall, earlier this year, there were two African-American hosts who both lost their jobs, one in Milwaukee, one in Philadelphia, for asking questions of then candidate Joe Biden that the DNC had sent to them. And I'm just not that dude. I'm not that person. But since you sent it to me, I'll give her a chance to respond to what obviously concerns you. Issue number 2, watching my time. In an interview in March that I'm again quoting from this email. In an interview in March that was recently unearthed, Jill Stein said she'd be open to pardoning Trump and convicted January 6ers. More details below, Tavis. Let me go below. Quoting from this email. When asked about, and they put this in bold, I'm going to show Jill Stein this right quick. You can't see the name.
He's asking them verbatim. That's amazing.
Bold, all caps. Yeah. Bold, all caps. When asked about pardoning January 6 rioters, Stein said that she would have to look more carefully at their actual charges and that January 6 was being blown up for political reasons. When Stein was asked if she would pardon Trump if elected, she responded, "What's he guilty of?" Going on to say that many U.S. presidents had committed war crimes as bad as Trump's financial crimes,
reading the question
ultimately
word for
saying
word.
she'd have to see what he was convicted of and what his sentence was. These are quotes that the DNC is bringing to my attention that you've made about potentially pardoning Donald Trump and January 6 rioters. To that, Dr. Jill Stein, you say what?
Okay, now, look, the point of this is not to beat up on Jill Stein, so I didn't include all of her answers, but I included some that I just think are a little bit too lousy to ignore as honest commentators, and this is one of them, quite frankly. I'm sorry to say. Still writing her in solidarity with the Muslims and Arabs, still voting for her, but this is not good.
So, this is totally taken out of context. That question was posed as part of a laundry list of a number of people for whom pardons might be a potential issue. And whether it was Julian Assange or Edward Snowden, I don't recall, but there were many in that list.
Well, Julian Assange and Edward Snowden, it's just a yes. I mean, the obvious answer is yes.
Right.
So it wouldn't depend on anything in their cases.
That were, serious contenders for pardon. So I gave a blanket answer, that everyone, everyone merits their day in court. And at the time, my recollection is that at the time, Trump had been convicted of financial crimes related to not filing campaign finance information.
Issue number 3 in this email.
Right, so the correct answer there is obviously the January 6 protesters were overcharged and oversentenced. So you might have to look at specifics about who deserves a full pardon, because if someone committed an act of violence or whatever, then you might not want to fully pardon them. But they were all overcharged and way oversentenced. Right. And so you should at least just say that. Instead, she just punts on the issue entirely, which I think is a weak move. And why are you including Julian Assange and Edward Snowden in the list of cases you'd have to look at? Those are no-brainer pardons, right? So, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't love that. I don't love that.
I quote from the email from the DNC. Earlier this month, she, Jill Stein, told Newsweek falsely that she was not taking GOP help in this race. We put out a statement, we being the DNC apparently, put out a statement noting how false that was with more background here. There's a link in this email for me to see the background. Then we learned this week that she, in fact, paid a lawyer who was involved in cases to overturn the 2020 election results. Dr. Jill Stein.
Okay. So that answer was not important. Go on. Question number 4 from the DNC. He reads every single one.
Number 4, raised in this email to me from the DNC. I quote, last week, Stein was endorsed by David Duke. David Duke, who said that he made the endorsement after thinking about, quote, what's good for white people, Europeans, close quote. What say you about being endorsed by David Duke?
Now, her answer to this
no, because her policies are clearly in line with David Duke's ideas.
Yeah.
That, was not a troll in any way.
Well, this is what's so ridiculous about her answer. Her answer to this is just
we got some of that
crazy.
in on Twitter when we announced we were going to interview her. Yeah, she was endorsed by David Duke.
Oh yeah, right.
How fucking stupid are you? How stupid are you?
Yeah, but her answer here,
she's right in line with David Duke.
I gotta say though, her answer here, it's very short, but it's pretty dumb as well.
What if David Duke endorsed Kamala? Would you talk about that?
Yeah, right.
Would you bring that up?
Look, there's a reason why I think her answer here is important.
Europeans, close quote. What say you about being endorsed by David Duke?
Apparently he didn't know that I'm Jewish. And who put him up to this is what I'd like to know. And of course, we rejected that out of hand.
Okay. Of course he knows you're Jewish. Your name is Stein. The guy's a lifelong anti-Semite. I'm sure he knows all the Jew names. He knows Stein is Jewish. He knows you're Jewish. He did it as a troll, and this speaks to a weakness of the Green Party. I'm sorry I have to say. All right? As constructive criticism. Frame it that way if it helps you. He knows you're Jewish. He endorsed you as a troll because David Duke wants Donald Trump to win, but he knows his endorsement would be a liability to Donald Trump if he endorsed Donald Trump. So what does he do? As a troll, he endorses the left-wing candidate who he sees as being helpful to Donald Trump because you take votes from Kamala. But of course, Jill Stein is afraid to embrace the fact that she's taking votes from Kamala. She feels this need to apologize for that for some fucking crazy reason. And so she has to make up that he didn't know I was Jewish. Oh, is that cringe? Oh, is that cringe? But the reason she has to twist herself in a pretzel to make that obviously absurd formulation is because she's afraid to just lean into the idea that she's taking votes from Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I don't
like why.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that they live with the illusion that they're going to win over Democrats. Their only fertile territory for expansion are the great mass of people, almost half the public, that don't vote.
Exactly.
That's where your votes are getting. You're never winning them over. You're never winning them over. They're mad at Elizabeth Warren.
Right.
These people. They're never going. They're gonna go green.
Right.
Get out of it. So burn their whole shit down.
Exactly.
Revel in it. You should be the Joker with the match and the kerosene with them.
Right. Exactly. All right. Here's question number 5. Last one.
Okay. Issue number 5 on this issue, this email from the DNC. Stein has repeatedly said she has no regrets about being a spoiler in the 2016 election, even after everything Trump did in office. See background below, and there's all kind of background below to make this particular point. Finally here, as I said, to close this circle, I referenced this New York Times article that I read that you have not read.
This is amazing.
That the DNC put as
this
their
is the
first
cherry on
point that
top
they wanted
here.
me to ask you about regarding your family. This is the exact quote I was referencing when I mentioned your son who was quoted in the article. One of Ms. Stein's, I'm reading now from the email. One of Ms. Stein's adult sons said in an interview, Tavis, asking not to be identified by name to avoid any personal or professional repercussions from associating with her. Here's the quote from one of your adult sons. Quote, when she told us she was going to run again back in October 2023, we asked her not to, close quote. That is the quote. That was in the New York Times. I read the story a few days ago about the headline was something like Jill Stein says she's not getting out of the race no matter who asked her, and that quote from one of her adult sons was in the piece. We've already addressed it. I just wanted to give the exact quote so people wouldn't say I paraphrase, because that's what I was doing until I found my notes. Now, that's it.
Okay, so let me just, I'll let this play.
Dr. Jill Stein is here for the rest of this hour. When we come forward, enough of the defense. I will let her go on offense.
I'll let her go on offense. I'll let her ask the questions I would have asked. I spent the first half hour doing the DNC the favor that they probably threatened my job if I didn't do for them. For those who missed what he did at the end there, so he asked the 5 hit piece questions, then back and read an exact quote from the first question that he didn't get to read when he asked it because he misarranged
he made
his
sure
notes.
Not to miss a word.
Exactly. He went back even after she already answered the first question and made sure he read exactly what they wanted him to read.
Yeah.
5 questions later. Tell me that's not a guy who was afraid they were going to fire him if he didn't read that question. Tell me that was not a hostage tape. That's amazing. And all the while he's doing this, he's acting like he's taking a stand against him, quote for quote, word for word, reading it off a list. I mean, that is amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, I really think that was his way of trying to convince himself that they didn't take his nuts and put it in a jar. Well, I'll read them, but I'm going to tell people I'm reading them.
Yeah.
See? You don't own me.
Well, he had to do that to save face with his audience because he doesn't have a reputation as a Democrat hatchet man.
Right. Yeah.
So if he just came out and asked her about David Duke and how her brother doesn't want her to run or whatever, people would see that something's off. They'd be like, wait a minute, this is out of character for you. Something's wrong. So he has to put in the disclaimer that he's basically being coerced into asking these questions. And then he goes along as if he's taking a stand. Jill Stein says, yeah, they tried to cuck you into asking me these, but thanks for taking a stand. Meanwhile, he reads every single one.
Yeah, right. Verbatim.
And then goes back at the end and makes sure he didn't miss something.
Sure he gets all of it in.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that is wild.
I mean, if Jill Stein had the kind of wicked sense of humor that we appreciate, she when being presented with that quote from her son would have gotten very grave and said, truth is, you've been in and out of drug rehab.
Yeah, right.
You've tried to help him get off the horse.
Exactly.
He's got that monkey on his back.
Right.
But she would never do that.
No. She could have thrown him under the bus if she had our sense of humor. But of course, the other question is, what is the DNC doing asking? I mean, you really see a level of panic about Jill Stein that we didn't even see in 2016 because they were so confident going into 2016
Right.
Yeah, they were annoyed by Jill Stein, but they kind of assumed they'd win
but
anyway.
they ignored her.
So you didn't really see this level of hysteria. Now they're emailing Tavis Smiley, and he mentions on air that the two other black hosts got fired for asking Biden tough questions. So I don't know that they probably didn't, because that would be a major scandal if it ever got out there. I'm sure they didn't type in as many words. Your career as a talk radio host is over if you don't ask her this. But he definitely got that message. He was definitely under that impression. There's no question in my mind about that.
Yep.
None at all. Wow. That was something else. All right, folks. Going to take a little bit of a game break here for a word from you guys who are our dissident supporters. We had a great supporter stream last night. We appreciate everybody who joined. It was a really, really fun time. Like I said, one of the best laugh meltdowns ever in the history of this show was on last night's supporter stream during the third-party debate. So, I mean, that's worth the price of admission as it is. DoDissidents.locals.com. You can join our Patreon or our Substack, but we're really pushing the locals here since that is a committed free speech streaming platform. We can now stream to locals as well. So if you go to DoDissidents.locals.com, you could join for as little as $5 a month. If you're watching on Rumble right now, there are 1,200 of you who are. You can click that bright red join button underneath the screen. Really sweetening the deal this week. I mean, this is the week to join if you haven't joined yet. We did a supporter stream last night that's available on the replay now. You're also going to get Russell's tour live streamed on Saturday. And then They Live, our film club, our inaugural patron film club night. That is going to be, what do we say, Wednesday, right? We can't do it Monday because we're hosting the Jimmy Dore Show Monday, actually. So that's why we can't do that Monday. But we're doing it on Wednesday, the day before Halloween. So you're getting a ton of exclusive content this week. So it's a great time to sign up. And it also comes with the standard perks, your name up in lights here on the show credits. You also get call-in access to our Q&As every Sunday night on Rumble after the main show. All that for as little as $5 a month. You guys are what keep the show going. We've got a lot of new locals members this month. We're super excited about that. You guys give us the confidence to keep going. You guys are what censor-proof the operation. You guys are the reason we are able to do this. We could not do this without you. So if you would like to sign up, please do. If you have $5 a month to throw into the pool, we make it worth your while. You get a ton of extra perks and content and stuff like that. So that's DoDissidents.locals.com. Or you can join our Substack, DoDissidents.substack.com, or the Patreon. Perks are the same across all of those platforms. Thank you guys very much for your support. Go ahead.
All right, so we have a few tickets left for tomorrow night. Sold out for Saturday. Friday night, we still have 7 left.
There you go.
So last chance. Train is leaving the station. Weird New York. Inaugural tour is right. That's tomorrow. Yeah. Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
We will be going to the site of a very famous Weather Underground bombing in MK Ultra Safe House, the site of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. And the sick bastards that are attracted to this show seem to all know who Gigi Allen is. So we're going to be doing a little riff on Gigi Allen there, among many, many other things.
Awesome. All right. It is the morning. What do you guys drink in the morning? You drink Rumble 1775 coffee in the morning. That's right. That is what you drink. So have you heard of the recent advertising scandal? I'll break it down for you. The CEO of Rumble, Chris Pavlovski, recently released an email from Inspire Brands and Dunkin' Donuts. And that email explicitly states that the culture of Rumble is too polarizing. In other words, Dunkin' Donuts has a problem with Rumble's right-wing culture and wants nothing to do with Rumble. So here's the solution. Stop buying products that don't support free speech and start supporting brands that do. The competing coffee brand that we should all get behind now is Rumble 1775 coffee. Comes in 16-ounce bags, so you get more bang for your buck than you do at the grocery store. For a limited time, Rumble is offering buy 2 bags of coffee and get 1 for free. That's right, get 1 free. Go to 1775coffee.com and enter promo code Duncan to get this limited time deal. 1775coffee.com and enter promo code Duncan. Great troll game by Rumble, as always. And, the reviews of 1775 coffee from our users who have bought it to support this show and to support Rumble, and we thank you. You guys are the best, have actually been very good. Very good. People have been messaging and tweeting that they really do like the coffee quite a bit. Dan Richmond, the Motley Jew, bought it. He tweeted at us that he's going to complain to us if he doesn't like it. But he does like it. He tasted it, and actually he gave a really hilarious review of Rumble 1775 coffee. He says, it's very fine coffee on both sides.
On both sides. Yes.
It's good.
Yeah, fuck Jeremy. Fuck
Very
Jeremy
fine
at the
coffee.
quartering and his fucking coffee.
Very fine coffee
This
on
is
both
this
sides.
is the real shit, man.
That's the real shit. Absolutely.
Jeremy's having migrant workers pick coffee beans out of cow shit for that coffee. This is the real stuff.
That's right. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Garland Nixon has a live stream about the BRICS Summit with Scott Ritter and Andrei Martyanov for 2 or 3 hours. Check it out. The BRICS Summit is a historic milestone and turning point. Don't be left out. We're going to cover it next, Sparky. Well, a few segments. Leela Gray, thanks for the $5. October surprise, Trump groped minor. Kamala groped me, trending. Hilarious. Union Parkster, thanks for the $10. Can't find a clip now, but there is Star Trek original series scene where they talk about Hitler doing some good things and Spock is very taken aback. Might be a fun clip to play.
Really?
Interesting. Thank you.
I don't remember
Over the
that
top.
episode.
Remember, the Trump assault is multi-purpose. It is a smear campaign and also an assassination campaign. Derek, thanks for the $5. Whenever Stein gets any BS pushback, she folds like a cheap suit, just like she folded to Mehdi Hassan. KDK7, yeah, I wish she would just, say, about January 6th when she said that, they might be pardoned. Why do you run away from that? Why? What is the point of that? KDK7, thanks for the $5. I just assumed that these David Duke endorsements were troll bought cameos. No, apparently that was real. Alrighty. Sparky, thanks for the $5. Facts, bad things heard about Putin result from relentless propaganda and false flags. Putin is actually a reasonable, if not righteous man. How dare you, Sparky? XRP Plumbing, there are too many Zionists controlling American people and their government. Wake up, Americans, your government is your enemy. Thank you, XRP. Derek, for the $5, it's good that Stein had the chance to respond to that BS and useful to see how weak her response was, as it usually is. I agree. I didn't think those answers were very good, if I'm being honest. And we got to be honest. Like I said, we're supporting the Greens to support Abandon Harris. That's really the crux of it. And we've been pretty open about that since we made that move. All right. We got some Rumble rants, and then we are switching to Rumble after this segment. So this is the final segment of the day on YouTube, but not the final segment of the show. We really want you to come over to Rumble. We got a couple of great pieces prepared for you over there. So dudissidents.com/Rumble if you want to start heading over there now. But we got one more on this side. And Russ, this is yours.
Okay, so Matt Taibbi, since the Twitter files, has really been on the speech beat. This, as you would expect, is not getting any mainstream press coverage, but it's pretty significant and it's pretty terrifying. So Russia's supposed to be interfering in our elections, right? But no, it's England that's interfering in our elections, believe it or not. The British are coming to meddle in our elections in an explosive leak with ramifications for the upcoming U.S. presidential election. Internal documents from the Center for Countering Digital Hate, whose founder is British political operative Morgan McSweeney, now advising the Kamala Harris campaign, show the group plans in writing to kill Musk's Twitter while strengthening ties with the Biden-Harris administration and Democrats like Senator Amy Klobuchar, who has introduced multiple bills to regulate online misinformation. Klobuchar's office declined repeated requests for comment. So now here's part of the leaked materials here. And you could see this is their agenda for a meeting on May 31st. And top of the agenda is kill Musk's Twitter. And some of the rest of it is pretty scary too. Trigger EU and UK regulatory action and progress towards change in USA and support for STAR. Now, STAR is basically a US version of what you've seen in Australia and New Zealand and the EU, where they're passing laws that will hold platforms accountable for what they deem misinformation or hate speech and so on. So this is what their agenda was. This is basically if an agenda from Dr. Evil leaked. This is what you might see. The Center for Countering Digital Hate is the anti-discrimination activist ally of Prime Minister Keir Starmer's Labour Party and a messaging vehicle for Labour's neoliberal think tank Labour Together. Both the CCDH and Labour Together were founded by Morgan McSweeney, a Svengali credited with piloting Starmer's rise to Downing Street, much as Karl Rove is credited with guiding George W. Bush to the White House. Now, we have a lot of our British friends watch on Thursday morning, so you probably know who this guy is. I never heard of him until I read this article, but apparently he's a pretty powerful figure in the UK, and he's becoming a very powerful figure here, according to Taibbi's reporting. The CCDH documents carry particular importance because McSweeney's Labour Together operatives have been teaching election strategy to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, leading Politico to call Labour and the Democrats sister parties. CCDH's focus on Kill Musk's Twitter also adds to legal questions about the nonprofit's tax-exempt status as a 501c3 organization. According to the IRS, CCDH could lose its special tax status if, quote, a substantial part of its activities is attempting to influence legislation. Yet CCDH's third item on its annual priority list is, quote, trigger EU and UK regulatory action. And the group previously employed the firm Lot 16 to lobby congressional offices on misinformation in Washington. The stateside dispatch of labor personnel has been depicted in British media as a self-interested gambit to keep America's war machinery closely aligned with Israel and Ukraine, and billions of American defense dollars flowing in both directions. However, these are only the visible parts of the British invasion. McSweeney's Labour Together has been operating in the U.S. for several years through CCDH. The Starmer Labour Together formula for regaining power in the UK relied heavily on CCDH's aggressive efforts to deplatform rivals on the left and right by lobbing accusations of bigotry, misinformation, and other misdeeds. Sound familiar? As reported in Tablet and Racket, one of CCDH's successes involved silencing Starmer's critics on the left by leading a boycott of advertisers for news sites like the left-leaning Canary on the grounds that its pro-Palestinian takes were anti-Semitic.
Look at Racket News writing the word Palestinian. Bravo.
Boom.
Boom.
Big surrender to the communists.
McSweeney has been praised for convincing Starmer that he needed to sacrifice party unity to demoralize the far-left faction, as Politico put it. In the U.S., a now defunct CCDH offshoot called Stop Funding Fake News led multiple successful boycotts of media figures across the spectrum, from Zero Hedge during the BLM riots to The Federalist. The formula often involved collaborating with a mainstream media outlet to level an accusation of bigotry, followed by a pressure campaign against advertisers to shut off revenue to the target. It's crucial to understand that CCDH, Labour Together, and Keir Starmer's Labour Party exist as a single package, with McSweeney at the helm. No political operative in the Western Hemisphere is more in demand than Starmer's Rasputin, regularly hailed as a genius. Much like Rove, however, the McSweeney reputation is built more on mudslinging and character assassination than insight into voter needs. Canary-style efforts and boycotts have already begun in the U.S. McSweeney's Labor Together colleague, Imran Ahmed, opened a CCDH office in D.C. 3 years ago and began working with American journalists to suppress dissent and enforce narratives friendly to Democrats and the Biden-Harris administration. All right, so this is extremely dangerous. And really, if you want to understand, because we talked to Taibbi about Trump at Rescue the Republic, and his take was basically, his take was basically, hey, we need to support Trump to protect free speech. Now, we've pointed out on many occasions areas where Trump and Elon as well are friendly to free speech quite selectively. Trump has said that people who burn the American flag should go to jail. He's threatened worse crackdowns on student protesters. These are not the Trump deranged claims. There's legitimate stuff he straight out said out of his own mouth. And of course, Elon, who did he pull down? Ken Klippenstein during the Democratic convention.
Well, that was after. He pulled down the uncommitted handle at the convention. Right. He took Ken Klippenstein off for doxing J.D. Vance, but seemingly at the request of the Trump campaign.
Right. So
that was the charge that he doxed him. I didn't follow that story as closely as I should have, I admit. That was my
so there
failure.
Is that. And if there's anyone who should understand how capricious Elon Musk's belief in free speech should be, it's Matt Taibbi, who Elon has shadow banned.
He said outright he's not a champion of free speech. He said that to us when we interviewed him. Yeah.
Right. Straight up.
Yeah.
So I understand in a lesser of two evils way with speech, especially if you look at what Taibbi's laying out here, and this is territory Schellenberger will very often get into as well. There is this kind of Davos WEF liberal class conspiracy, frankly, to suppress speech online. There is. Right. And this is what he's laying out here. And this is a part of it. And he said, when I spoke to him at Rescue the Republic, he couldn't imagine what the country would be like if Kamala Harris won. And this is what he's talking about. And he's not wrong. If you look at the implications of some of this, it is pretty terrifying.
Sure.
What's going to happen to platforms like Rumble if they manage to pass something like that? Mm-hmm. Now, of course, we do have that pesky First Amendment, which is the only reason nothing like this has been passed here already. Right. Whereas all around us, other Five Eyes countries are adopting these kinds of policies. So based on this article, the Trump campaign is already threatening to investigate them. They've already written an article. This was the follow-up. The Trump campaign sent a letter to the Federal Election Commission accusing the Labor Party and Kamala Harris, respectively, of making and accepting illegal foreign national contributions. The campaign cited a since-deleted LinkedIn post in which Labor head of operations Sophia Patel boasted of sending nearly 100 Labor Party staff to North Carolina, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Virginia to help the Harris campaign. I thought it was the Russians. Right. I thought the Russians are interfering in our campaigns. Patel noted she had, quote, 10 spots available for the battleground state of North Carolina, and we will sort your housing. Such assistance is reportedly legal if volunteers are not compensated. So here is the tweet. I have nearly 100 Labor Party staff, current and former, going to the U.S. in the next few weeks, heading to North Carolina. Now, this is Labor Party staff coming to the United States to support a candidate. How is that not a foreign power interfering in our elections? What if Russia sent 100 operatives from Putin's political party to come help Donald Trump?
Oh, forget it. Everybody at those rallies would be in jail, much less the Russians.
Much less the Russians, exactly. Yeah. I have 10 spots available for anyone available to head to the battleground state of North Carolina. We will sort your housing. And she gives an email. Okay, so this is some of the leaked material here. Now, this is really scary, and you should really pay attention to this. The conference is entitled The State of STAR. When we did the original conference, there was no legislation in place. We now have EU, UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand. State of STAR and explainers will be vital primers, possibly a time series analysis. Okay, so this is their reporting. This is a reference to CCDH's STAR framework. CCDH's broad plan for speech reform, which includes a mandatory framework in which duties of care to remove harmful content are enshrined and forced on private platforms by governments. As notes from the January meeting explain, when CCDH first got up and running, there was no legislation in place to suggest broad censorship by proxy format. As of January 2024, however, a host of Western social democracies have passed new laws echoing its main themes, to include the EU's Digital Services Act, Australia's Online Safety Act, and the eponymous Online Safety Law in Britain. Both New Zealand and Canada have also proposed new laws. Hence Ahmed's ominous January comment, we now have EU, UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. And that is certainly ominous, and it gives you a lot of insight into how these people are thinking. They are trying to gradually pass legislation that will ban speech that they don't like throughout the Western world. And when you look at this, you can see where Taibbi is coming from and feeling that Trump is the lesser evil regarding speech, that the problems that you might have there are not quite as developed as this, where they've got a plan to end free speech online ready to go that they've already executed successfully in several countries, with the U.S. being the holdout.
Yeah. Yeah, it is terrifying. And, the thing that, reading this story makes me think, like, okay, you're doing all this stuff. You're trying to suppress dissent as much as possible. It strikes me as poor planning on their part, because you'd think they would want to get all of this in place and squared away before World War III. Because it makes it harder to do it when you're trying to start World War III at the same time you're doing this. Like, the Obama years would have been the time to just do this, because that's when people were, like, lulled to sleep, right? There wasn't World War III hot on three burners at that time, although they got it started, obviously, in 2014. But it just seems like a lot to pull off right now as the world is going to hell, because now you could really see why they're trying to suppress dissenting speech, because the agenda is right in our face now. You'd think they would pick a time of relative calm to get this shit squared away, but no, I guess they feel they could do it both at once.
Well, it's for two reasons. I mean, during the Obama years, for one thing, the internet and social media were not nearly as developed.
That's true. They didn't have the power then. The internet, I mean, yeah.
Trump hadn't been elected.
Right.
That broke their brains.
Right.
You don't censor people when you're confident in your power. You censor them when you're insecure. At this point, they're afraid of losing power. And it's also, at the time that Obama was president, there was still a vestige of the liberal belief in freedom of speech as an absolute good. This would be unimaginable to our younger listeners today. After the Oklahoma City bombing, all of the independent bookstores had the Turner Diaries to help people understand where Timothy McVeigh was coming from. Right. That was widely, I still have a copy because it was in the book. It was in Shakespeare and Company. The Anarchist Cookbook used to be widely available in bookstores. I didn't even realize this because I hadn't thought about it, but because of the whole recent Daryl Cooper dust up, I wanted to refresh my knowledge of Mein Kampf, which I haven't read since I was in high school. It's very difficult to get now. And when I first read it, I bought it at Barnes & Noble. You walked into Barnes & Noble, it was there. So this liberals not questioning this core principle that part of being a liberal was having the anarchist cookbook widely available to anyone who wants to read it. It's unimaginable now, but that was the ideal that I came up with. It was the ideal until relatively recently.
Really, until Trump, and you're right. I mean, that is a good answer. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, there wouldn't have been the political will. Like this would have been a huge scandal in a pre-Trump world. The liberals would go, what do you mean we're gonna suppress speech? It wasn't until Trump won and there became this emergency that they all thought, well, now that Trump is in office, now extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures, and so there would not have been the political will to do this until they were seen as being in a certain crisis mode. Yeah.
Right. Virtue signaling now is showing that you support the drag brunch. Honestly, liberal virtue signaling then was having the anarchist cookbook in the local bookstore. It really was.
Yep. And there was even a resurgence of that post 9/11. You know, as the Patriot Act was being signed, liberals were all against that. They were against that.
Right.
Yep. That's why I used to be one. All right. Judy Denmark, thanks for the $10. I can only listen to Kamala by using you guys as a filter. I don't know whether to thank you or accuse you of mental cruelty. Thank you, Judy. Appreciate that. Kenman, Daryl Cooper thinking about throat singing his next podcast to gain market share of Mongolian neo-Nazis. Thank you, Kenman. Appreciate that very much. Jamie Turner says, I'm not a Penn State fan. It's just true that he's innocent. All right. Yeah, it's an interesting hill to die on, but everybody makes their own choice. Raven Laz, now she wants transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. Donald Trump, thank you. Appreciate that. Mark Pugliese, boys, could the ridiculous debate have been a deliberate deep state op? That's what Tusker thought. They got a lot of money from somewhere to look ridiculous, so it's not that far-fetched, I don't think. Eric Husseau, I'm so sick of the dictator narrative. No one can ever tell me exactly how someone can make himself a dictator in this country. Thank you very much for that. All right, we got a few more super chats to read here. Sparky, thanks for the $5. The Duran released an extra insightful stream early this morning with Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, Alexander Mercouris, and Glenn Deason.
Oh, yeah?
Check it out. Thank you.
We're gonna meet that dude in a couple days.
We're meeting Larry Wilkerson in a couple days. Garland Nixon stream, says Sparky, airs in 2 or 3 hours, not necessarily for 2 or 3 hours. I think you misspoke. Oh, okay, maybe I did, Sparky. I apologize. Sparky, thanks for the $5. Bring Cynthia McKinney back from exile in recently U.S. regime change Bangladesh to serve in Congress or the next presidential administration. Thank you, Sparky. All right, guys, we got a bunch more Rumble rants. We will get to those on the Rumble side. We're going to take a 5-minute intermission now and continue the show. That's right. We're done on YouTube, but we are not done. We have a great uncensored peek into the world of Israeli stand-up comedy. Those segments are always fun, are they not?
Yeah, listen, if you wonder what Israeli stand-up would be like in Tel Aviv, it's as bad as you imagine and worse. And let me tell you, this comic is very lucky I did not stumble upon his genocidal comedy stylings until now, because he was touring. He did 4 nights in New York in September.
Yeah, there could have been a Jose Vega type thing.
We would have been there with bells on.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a look into the world of Israeli stand-up comedy and obviously covering the BRICS Summit in 5 minutes. So meet us over there. DoDissidents.com/Rumble takes you directly to this very live stream over there. All you got to do is enter that in your URL search bar, and you will find us over there. We will see everybody over on the Rumble side in 5 minutes. I would say if you can't be there, we'll see you Sunday, but you got to be there. There's plenty more show left, and these are great segments. So be there. We'll see you in 5 minutes over on Rumble. Until then, thanks for the show so far. Be safe. Be well. We'll see you in 5 minutes.
Courage.
Please clap.